Well, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, my name's Blake Burnett. I'm chairman and founder of a company called Sanctuary Dex. We're kind of a company that makes software for decentralized finance. We've got a whole variety of products, and so consequently, this panel, there's everybody on this panel I've got personal questions for because we're a startup. So I may bombard you with some questions y'all haven't heard yet, but we'll go ahead and get started with our questions here. The first one is trust, transparency, and security are claims often cited about blockchain, and the question is, where have you seen these things in action? So who wants to go first?
Okay, well, I guess I'm first in the queue. Look, we are, thank you, by the way, Blake. We are a traditional company. You know, we're not we're not a Web3 company, but of course we interact with blockchain quite extensively in our operations. So we don't stay in Web3 world all the time. Our customers don't. Sometimes they're in normal fiat world, and then sometimes they're in the crypto world. In terms of the sort of the questions around security, and privacy and all that sort of stuff. And as a traditional organization, we need to look after our clients' assets very carefully. So we have segregated accounts, segregated banks, and when we're interacting, with clients, through, say, blockchain, we're obviously thinking about the travel rule, understanding, the destination as well as the sort of like the source of crypto to make sure that any transactions that come into us, are valid, and can't be disputed. I think the reality is that, if we're brutally honest, the blockchain technologies are innovative, they're interesting, they're future-proof, but they are not in and of themselves moving the needle today in traditional business. What's really moving the needle is sort of like a hybrid approach between, traditional and non-traditional. And it's kind of security concerns, in fact, that are holding back the industry, linked to unfortunate issues like FTX, the Luna stablecoin, and these kind of big market events that leave people feeling sort of concerned.
Yeah, and FTX is definitely the elephant in the room on that subject. Does anybody else have any examples of where they've seen trust, transparency, and security?
Okay, I think I can share a little bit from the GameFi perspective. I'm Jisheng, I'm the CEO of Playamon. So when we started playing games back then, say 10, 20 years ago, let's say you get your items and everything you want to sell. So what happened is that we have to, invite someone to go to the cyber cafes, sit side by side, and, really trade the things. But today, with NFTs, we are able to do it in a decentralized manner. You just list it on the marketplace. Through smart contract, you can actually trade it. There's no intermediary, and it reduces the scam. So in this way itself, we are looking at, security to another level. We are also looking at, usability or the ownership can be proved in a transparent blockchain. So you can't say that I own the weapon, but you don't own it, and you try to sell it. You can't sell things that you don't own. So I think that is the beauty of blockchain.
So there was a double spend problem in gaming, is what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have an example?
Well, I was just going to highlight, I think, that the importance of security from different industries and sectors within Web3 itself. I want to make a distinction between where we operate, which is tokenized securities or real-world assets, which requires a lot of existing regulatory framework, including technology risk management, cyber hygiene guidelines, and those are very much similar to existing securities platforms that operate in the traditional markets, where we're talking about maybe gaming or assets that are pure non-securities, utility-based tokens, then I think a lot of the restrictions or regulations that come along with operating platforms or operators in that space may not be as relevant. So, for example, the travel rule shouldn't be applied to a purely utility-based operator or platform, right? Where travel rule would apply to securities regulated platforms like ours. So I think there should be a distinction between crypto native utility-based tokens versus security-based standards, or where payments are happening across borders. So, yeah.
Okay, Myrtle, from a marketing standpoint, do you have any?
So when it comes to marketing, so I've been in this space since 2016. Saw and experienced, of course, ICOs, to IDOs, to anything, right? IDOs, and we launched. I stepped down as the CEO of PlaceWar. It's basically a play-to-earn game, and it was acquired successfully by a Hong Kong entity. So I'm now focused in for Block Tides, and we're not just a marketing agency now. We're gonna be building now in a blockchain-based system, of course, a company that we know, but of course, at the same time, in a marketing standpoint, it needs to be socially, mentally, and at the same time, we need to apply everything when it comes to security, right? For security purposes, you need to inform everyone when it comes to the things that they need to know. Because basically, crypto per se, not everyone really knows cryptocurrency. Even actually, my uncle doesn't trust cryptocurrency, which is, of course, your own problem. Your own family doesn't trust decentralized assets, right, or digital assets. So it's our responsibility for us to be the main educators, for us to be our own marketing, for us to provide the right information. What are we doing in this space, right? Because it's not about actually fighting the traditional system. It's about solving the current issues that it has. So we don't need to fight for something or actually, because other people's mindset are like that, right? You need to tear down this, tear down that. But the beauty behind blockchain technology is the inclusivity. So if you actually want to join or probably support one blockchain, you need to be inclusive. You don't need to have a division. That's my own personal opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, Nicole, from a decentralized autonomous organization standpoint, how do you see these three things applying?
So I'm the co-founder of APAC DAO, and we are a Web3 community in Southeast Asia. I mean, the DAO is definitely like a trending term these days. But let's say, I mean, we haven't gone into full DAO yet. So just consider it's like a B2B network for Web3 companies. So we have over 800 project members for now, and we are trying to see how we can leverage this network, you know, of course, not just for, let's say, short-term benefits, but think about how we can actually use Web3 as well, you know, to support the members. I think coming back to some of the points from the panelists, there might be some misunderstanding, I think, about, blockchain. I think number one is that, to me, I mean, blockchain is not like a competing technology with existing technologies. Basically, I see blockchain, let's say a lot of the people go into Web3 because they're looking for an extra avenue of opportunities and businesses. And there's a reason why I think Web3 has been dominating a lot of the fintech events and agenda, because people are running out of growth drivers. And Web3 is one of it. I mean, we cannot really tell if it's going to here to stay, but I can tell that, I mean, it is going to be here at least like for the next couple of years when people are running out of models to grow their, let's say, the business. Number two is that I think it's an underlying technology. So it's great if you combine it with a technology like AI or some other technologies, and then you will be able to actually harness the data and the way that blockchain data is being leveraged among the parties, so transparency and everything. And number three, I think that a lot of the problems or a lot of the mishaps happening with blockchain these days is with the onboarding process and with the rampings. So it doesn't happen right on blockchain. If you onboard the right users, the right data, I don't see like the real problem there. It's more about a lot of these like mishaps with the onboarding, with exchanges that make people like kind of have this mistrust with blockchain. So going back to the question about transparency, you know, and so on, as I mentioned, so DAO might be one model that we think is a good way to start leveraging some of the community power, I think. It cannot go anywhere close to a normal business network or an association, like a fintech association, for instance, where you have a lot of these like multi-billion businesses already in place for 10 years or so. I think with community here, it's more about, let's say, the people who don't have the, let's say, the resources as an individual to participate in the, let's say, in the bigger fintech kind of business or game. And with our community member, for instance, we of course are thinking about different ways for them to, for instance, help the others with some small incentives, but they can actually help a lot of these like business to business kind of activities on a daily basis. It can be some sort of investment DAO where people can chip in like small money and kind of invest in something that they trust. I don't say that this is definitely 100% right, or this is going to work 100%. But I mean, it's a different way for us to leverage the resources of these smaller individuals and SMEs and smaller companies to be able to participate in a bigger game. And from there, of course, whatever, I mean, the technology is dependent on the person who adopts it or who runs it. So I think it's just going to be another way for us to work and to do business. And think about it that way. I think people would have a more open-minded kind of attitude when it comes to blockchain.
Yeah, sure, it's a tool. Okay, Damien, what factors will really drive institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies as an asset?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a general comment beforehand. I feel that the blockchain technology is obviously it's innovative, and I am a supporter in it. But we have to just be realistic. This is a fintech conference. We're talking finance, and the use and application of blockchain in finance is still very immature. I mean, for example, if we wanted to even put a segment of our business onto a blockchain, it would crash overnight. Gas fees would just be through the roof. It just doesn't work that way. But in other areas, maybe in gamification, etc., I'm sure it's advanced and it's much more mature. Look, going back to institutional adoption, so everyone says that there is no value in Bitcoin. It doesn't back anything. It's not backed by anything like gold or something like that. This is sort of hot air, and it's a way of saying that we don't want to adopt these kind of technologies. The reality is that an asset like Bitcoin is as strong as its holders, and today a lot of the holders of Bitcoin, of the mined Bitcoin, are retail, and when they see signs that the asset may depreciate, they fear they'll lose their money and they get out, and of course it perpetuates an ongoing selling cycle. So when the institutional community, like say BlackRock and Fidelity, announced that they are going to get involved by developing a spot Bitcoin ETF, what it's doing is it's giving massive confidence to the community that at some stage, very, very well capitalized companies will own portions of Bitcoin. And when they do that, it gives it stability. Now, when you have stability in an asset, you also get interest from liquidity providers. These are people that come along and say, well, the asset's trading in the range of 28 to 38. As a market maker, a liquidity provider, I'm going to provide ongoing liquidity and ongoing risk management for that asset. And we already know that in the States, EDX, which is a new crypto exchange, is being supported by Citadel and Virtu. So on the one hand, in terms of your original question about institutionalization, we've got two of the world's largest asset managers stating a preference to invest in Bitcoin for underlying retail investors. By the way, they have 10 trillion at BlackRock. And on the other side, the liquidity side, you have the two largest liquidity makers in the world, Virtu and Citadel, both stating they're going to provide liquidity for this through EDX. So when you have those two sides of the equation coming together perfectly well, you get real strength in the asset, you get real interest from regulators, because they now go, shit, there's millions and millions of people that are investing in this in regulated entities. We need to up our game and get things underway. And what that means is the banking organizations that are so far a little bit hesitant of dealing with companies that work in crypto suddenly start to adopt it. So from my perspective at least, when I think about Bitcoin, the institutionalization is definitely the trigger for a massive upward trend.
Interesting.
Do you mind if I just
Oh, yeah,
tap
sure.
onto what
Sure,
Damien
Alice,
said?
jump in.
Yeah, actually, I watched your presentation earlier, Damien, and it was about the traditional markets and how accelerated growth really came along. And a lot of that was propelled by introduction of new technologies, introduction of new investment products like ETFs, right? And so what we're focusing on as a platform is private market assets, because there's been no improvements in the way that these transactions are done from the technology perspective. There's actually no legacy infrastructure that needs to be replaced, and so there's a huge opportunity there. And now that the infrastructures all come along with some of these larger financial institutions that are looking at tokenization or CBDCs as a payment rail, you've got BlackRock, you've got JP Morgan's, you've got Fidelity, all looking at this space. It is a different environment. It creates a lot more confidence for people to come into this space, and the right infrastructure in place. And so one of the things that we're building is also what some people have termed permission DeFi, where you're getting the confidence that you're operating through a regulated platform, and there's still KYC, AML checks at the front end, but the back-end applications are powered by truly a DeFi system. So our automated market maker is what we call permission DeFi. Everyone who uses and onboards has to do KYC and AML on the front end, but the AMM, the liquidity pools, are purely smart contracts and no banking systems, just smart contract holding the assets as well as the payment rails, and that would be stable coins or crypto.
Are you using an on-chain whitelist?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, so Tan, I guess the next question's for you. What steps are the Malaysia Blockchain Association taking to foster and be conducive an environment for fintech startups? And what are the priorities?
Okay, I think from Malaysia Blockchain Association perspective, we do have a couple of startups that is, up and coming, come to us and, seek for help. How can they, do tokenizations and go to the market? So for now, Malaysia, we are actually getting about 4 to 5 licenses ready. So we have license exchanges, and now they are also coming out with a true crowdfunding framework to allows you to do IEO. So it's a fully KYC IEO platform. So for Malaysia Blockchain Association, we definitely supports that. Also, we do have an offshore, it's called Labuan. So they have a booth inside as well. So they are giving out license, allowing people to actually do the adoption of blockchain. So allowing startups to go, the non-conventional way. So if conventional way is not for you, you want to access to the crypto market or the blockchain market, definitely there is. But besides that, we really focus much more on, educations and from fintech perspective, from technology perspective, we want to foster and allow the whole nation to actually grow together and have the knowledge. Because we have to admit that people that knows blockchain is definitely very little. People that knows crypto is about 1%, and people that really adopts it is not that much. So if we want to make it stronger, we have to do much more education. That's why we have to go to different conferences, bringing back the knowledge and bring back and do much more sharings, sessions and all that. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
And what about fintech in general? Because Damien brought up an interesting point. I mean, this is a fintech conference, not a blockchain conference. And somebody earlier did a presentation on open banking, which I found really, really interesting. What are you seeing in Malaysia as far as open banking outside of blockchain?
Token banking outside of blockchain wise, I mean, for fintech perspective, our e-wallet is actually, we have centralized, we have a lot of e-wallet license and all that. So, I would say MCO, the COVID-19 is actually our facilitator. It brings everyone from using cash base to now even the hawker centers allows you to use e-wallets. So with e-wallets itself, we also helped getting more frameworks for digital banking. And we do have full digital banking license, which joint partnerships and all that, that is being announced last year and this year as well. So I think moving forward, crypto, non-crypto, definitely digital banking will be there.
Yeah, you know, that's really interesting. When I came back to Thailand after COVID, seeing how, I mean, even the person selling bananas at the fruit market had a scan pay QR,
Yeah.
and in the United States, nobody's even close to that level of scan pay yet. It's really interesting how far ahead COVID pushed Thailand and some of Southeast Asia towards scan pay.
Yeah.
That what it's considered more tech savvy countries aren't anywhere close. And I saw that with the cell phone market too, back in the early 90s. I mean, countries like Venezuela that had no landline infrastructure, everybody had a cell phone in 1992 and nobody in the United States had one, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite common. You see, you know, emerging economies actually being able to benefit from new technologies much more quickly than the States because they don't have this incumbent infrastructure that, you know, I mean, it's not so long ago that I had to write a check in the States. I cannot believe that. It's still happening to this day. But what's holding it back is the incumbent systems. They can't update fast enough. In Estonia, for example, you can open a bank account in 30 seconds because they took the technology, they applied it, they had no legacy. And I think blockchain is going to pretty much be the same. It's, you know, it's going to affect and benefit those economies the fastest that don't have barriers to entry, particularly when you talk finance.
Okay. I guess the next question's for Alice. You know, because my company, my startup's based on tokenization of real-world assets and then using that for merchant payment systems and gift cards and things like that. But what do you see as the biggest misconception about tokenization of real-world assets?
Well, when we started in this space, it was back in 2017, I think we were very much confused with crypto, which is a different asset class altogether. Real-world assets actually are based on, there's also some contention on that word, real-world assets, because it already exists in the traditional world, but there is, it's based on traditional assets. It could be private credit. We've done one deal that's a private credit lending to SMEs. You could tokenize real estate. You can tokenize even carbon credits. It's really just the backbone and the engine that is the same as what powers cryptocurrencies and other infrastructure, but the asset classes are very different, and the regulations and of course, if you look at more closely, the taxation around them are also very different. I actually teach a course at SMU as part of the blockchain digital assets executive course, and one of the slides very easily delineates between the two because there's different regulatory frameworks that apply. PSA, for example, applies to cryptocurrencies, stable coins, whereas existing security regulations and existing securities tax frameworks apply to tokenized real-world assets.
Yeah, we've run into that as well. You know, one of our customers for tokenization involves Canadian mining claims, which translates to real estate, and Canada has a law that every real estate transaction gets 20% tax slapped on it. And so trying to work around that, I mean, we have found a way to work around it, but that would kill the tokenization. And then also, you know, what you were saying about the people confusing tokenization of assets and cryptocurrency, you know, that spills over into our raising capital. I mean, a lot of investors run away with their hair on fire because they think we're cryptocurrency, right?
I think it's progressed a lot, though, since when we first came into this space in 2017. There's a much better understanding.
Yeah, getting that message is a challenge.
Yeah.
So Myrtle, which blockchain fintech has successfully branded themselves, and how has blockchain changed gaming?
Can you please repeat?
What's that?
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. Which blockchain fintech company has successfully branded themselves? And this kind of two questions, and maybe they don't flow, but and how has blockchain changed gaming?
I don't want to actually be a maximalist here when it comes to blockchains. I'll just name a few, of course. So the most known blockchain is Ethereum with many use cases, right? So it exploded when it comes to gaming at the same time. But there's many chains because it's still up to your personal choice which chain you're gonna use as a builder, right? So when you want to develop something, it's really up to you, your principles, your values, if you really share the same, because it's different, right? Case-to-case basis. It depends on the goal as well. So that's my own personal opinion because others really have their own supported blockchains. Because us in Block Tides, we want to be agnostic as much as possible, not biased at the same time. Because we started out as a media. We wanted to be a responsible media, not providing fake news, and at the same time, unbiased opinions about blockchains. So if we resonate when it comes to the transaction speed, the transparency, the proof of reserve, if ever that blockchain has an exchange. So of course, if everything aligns with the builder or the institution that wants to deploy this chain, why not, right? And if it's actually good for humanity, so at the same time, we're really looking forward to the upcoming chain. When it comes to gaming, it is basically Gala chain. So it's not just about games already. They're gonna be moving forward when it comes to integrating all businesses possible, not just through games. And we recently just had a premiere when it comes to the Gala film. So just imagine the moves that Gala chain is actually doing, Gala Games initially, way back 2020. If you're gonna be asking about gaming, that's the reality. I'm not a maximalist of anything, but when it comes to building something, they already actually have 50 plus games. I don't know how many already. And they're entering the social media space as well. So it's a revolution. It's not just about being limited when it comes to building something. And again, I'm not a promoter of Gala. And at the same time, Ethereum, I'm just providing good use cases so the audience or the future audiences, if this is recorded, is actually watching. So it's up to you if you resonate with what they do when it comes to the builders of Solana, when it comes to, because Solana is already in the Philippines providing development education, like certifying developers in universities. So we're supporting our partners as well. We're doing 21 universities already, promoting them in Block Tides. You can see that. And it's already happening. So imagine that the Philippines doesn't really have much developers than Vietnam. Of course, Nicole is from Vietnam. They're the capital of developers and producing developers. And it's really good that the Philippines is moving forward in that angle through other foundations out there. So it's not about being a maximalist. Again, if you actually if that blockchain is basically helping an economy, a life, or basically the career or entrepreneurial journey of someone, we're going to support it, of course.
Can I just
Sure.
add something? Because when you mentioned it's a revolution in the capital market space, I think I like to use the term evolution as opposed to revolution. Primarily because you also mentioned using QR codes as a form of payment in Asia, which is not very prevalent in the US. But what's the next evolution of that? It's digital currencies, right? And how do you transact with digital currencies with real world assets? Well, those assets have to be on chain as well, right? And so if we are really moving to a digital economy, including, you know, the gaming, payments, assets, then I think it just makes sense that everything starts moving on chain.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, from
Maybe I'm
our
being the maximalist here.
It's actually the limitless innovation when it comes to the technology, right? It doesn't stop just being games. You
Yeah.
can actually like implement and innovate anything.
Royalties are moving on chain, right?
Yes.
From entertainers and
yeah, but let's face it. I mean, gaming has driven so much of the technology that then gets adopted by other things. I mean, the GPUs exist because of gaming, right? And now
But then again-
GPUs are the core that then they moved into Bitcoin mining, but now they're the core of artificial intelligence, right? So
But then again, I'm an advocate when it comes to sustainability. So one must, my personal choice is basically an eco-friendly blockchain.
yeah. So Myrtle, just real quick, you mentioned Solana. I mean, you know, Ethereum has just gotten too bloated. The gas fees are too high. Do you see Solana as the next one, or Pulse Chain, or who do you see as the?
Again, I don't want to really be a
Okay.
maximalist of something, but I can see a lot of blockchains emerging.
Yeah.
So if it's actually in the top 10, they really deserve it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not we all know fake news. And at the same time, you can see all of the transparency when it comes to Twitter. Everything is uncensored there. And you can definitely see when it comes to the KOLs or the CEOs, basically seated, like for example, CZ, Changpeng Zhao, they're providing everything when it comes to transparency. Again, I'm not a supporter of anything. So I'm the supporter for the tech itself.
Okay. I guess next question is for Nicole. How do you see DAOs playing a role in the future of financial governance?
Well, I would not. Financial governance is like a big word. My
Okay.
community is like 2,000 people, so I would not go as far as saying, you know, that we are doing something different with the financial governance. I think the more important part is how to involve people in the decision making, and making sure that everyone is well informed and everyone can go back and check, you know, like all of these like voting and how all of these decisions are being made through the DAO. So honestly, at the moment, as I mentioned, so we haven't gone into a full DAO model yet, because I think pretty much we need to have, number one, the right people. Number two is the right governance, as you mentioned. It's like a smaller country. So if we don't have a good constitution, I mean, to start with, the country is gonna go like, you know, in mayhem later, right? And number three, which I think is definitely very important, is that, to be honest, I think the people in the DAO, in the community, they stick together because they share some sort of value. And when it comes to value on blockchain, there's multiple ways where you can incentivize people to participate and contribute. You can design your own ecosystem, your own currency, and also your own incentive system to make sure that people, they have constant incentives just to be part of the community. So not just as a member, but as a contributor. So I think we are now considering different models. If you guys are interested in DAO, you know, you can also kind of think more about this. But there are different ways, you know, for people to actually participate in a DAO. And actually, with a DAO, it starts like also like a country. You have the gating system, making sure that these people are eligible as citizens. So you have NFTs, you have all of these memberships, making sure that, of course, people can actually, like, they are the right people for this society. So once they get in there, you also have some sort of tracking system to make sure that, let's say, they are contributing, they are going to these events, they are hosting events, for instance. They are doing these education, these campaigns to, let's say, advocate, for the business of the DAO, for instance. So you have all of these tracking mechanisms on chain, for instance, to make sure that this happens. You can combine NFT with something we call like a POAP, like a proof of evidence that you actually present at these events. You're actually doing these things at this certain time to contribute to the DAO. So you can actually have this different combination, very interestingly, and definitely automated in an automated way to check that these people are actually helping the community, not just like sitting there and doing nothing. And definitely when you want to exit the community, there are some ways, of course, for you to transfer the NFTs. There are some NFTs that cannot be transferred, but if you have done some good job, if you want to exit, if you want to kind of claim that and transfer the NFTs, you can have some incentives from that. So I think it's like a journey for people to be part of this whole DAO thing. And I think it's fascinating because if you are like a DAO, like an organizer or a DAO co-founding team, you can play with different ways and test out different ways for you to interact with the community. So honestly, I'm not coming from the financial kind of industry like with big corporates. I'm dealing more with startups. I'm working with these like smaller businesses. And I'm trying to see how this model is actually going to work to help these like startup founders to do their business better. And I mean, participating or running like a sub-DAO or a small DAO to test out some of these initiatives within a small community, a selected group, I think it's also a good way for you to create more values with your startups. So those are some of the ideas, on how we can actually do this as a DAO or something in between DAO and some centralized models that might work.
I would just make a comment. Ironically, I think that DAO is probably one of the more interesting use cases in blockchain that's probably most or least understood. I was trying to educate myself on what the hell is a DAO, and not that long ago, and it became interesting when I really understood, okay, these Bored Apes, we've all heard about these NFTs and the value of them, and the DAO behind the Bored Apes, and if you were actually part of that, the benefits and the initiatives you got were really fascinating. And my advice to you would be, actually, it's all very well thinking about startups as an area for DAOs, but I would go straight for HR departments in big corporates because, one of the things that people want to do, companies, and Exodus is a big company, and they want their employees to be educated in crypto because they know it's new. And they do things like, we did an NFT drop, which forced people to install wallets, to understand what an NFT, and you got access to a beautiful looking coin in your wallet. And I think that DAO is a way of kind of indirectly forcing employees to modernize. And HR departments are always looking at ways that you can, if you like, create a community. So, it's an interesting area.
Well,
Alice?
I was just going to say, we try to employ some of that where our employees are actually well-versed in everything that we do. What we did was tokenize our own ESOP plan, and everyone had to create a wallet in order to receive their vested tokens.
Yeah, I had a boss once tell me there's no substitute for knowing what you're doing.
Right.
Tan, do you have anything?
And we also did tokenize a Bored Ape.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
You tokenized what?
a Bored Ape. We tokenized it, fractionalized it, and issued it as a security token.
Interesting.
Actually, someone made like a restaurant for burgers when it comes to Bored Ape in the Philippines. And it's a real use case, real holder of a Bored Ape NFT.
Really?
Is that the Philippine Blockchain Week last year?
No, it's not related to Philippine Blockchain Week. So,
yeah, because I think Bot and Hungry was there.
I know the founder of the ones doing the burger business, and they've incorporated burgers, basically.
Yeah, going back to the example of the HR schemes, I think actually one of my friends has actually done it in his company. So instead of having like a bonus pool, for the end of the year, he actually kind of turns it into like a pool of tokens. And basically, they're going to give out this, like, they're going to be like publicly, they share this publicly in the group of the company, like saying, okay, so basically this is what you're going to get, if you are doing this and this and that. participating in the companies like gala dinner, like, you know, like helping to giving feedback to the company's policy, everything. And people like, I mean, the sense of ownership and the sense of being part of something that you can actually be, you can see everything transparent. I mean, it's like so powerful. And it's like changes the way that people think and the drivers, you know, for them to do this behavior. So at the end of the day, it's not like a it's not like a top-down kind of approach as yet. But I think the employers would feel so much more empowered.
You
when
can
they
build
participate this
already,
way.
right, in Board 8.
Yeah, and
know, that's-
Discord with
I
Discord. as well.
learned something here because one of the things my company does is we make cryptocurrency gift cards, and you can put the tokenized assets on these gift cards. And we've got a lot of customers who want to buy them for their employees for Christmas bonuses.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I didn't understand why before, and now I understand that it's because they're trying to push the employees into the space and get them to understand. So that's interesting.
But yeah, just to touch upon what Nicole said about your friend who did that with the HR, it's one of the same drivers for why we tokenize our ESOP plan is because the ESOP is meant to be one of the biggest incentive drivers for staff. But we found as a founder that a lot of the staff don't understand what they're getting, how they're getting it. There's no transparency there. And so once you've actually made it into this token system, which is very transparent, and all of the ways that they can earn these tokens are clearly set forth, and it's automatically vesting through whatever it might be. We actually even thought of, you know, other than work performance, maybe it can be tied to, are you getting enough sleep? Because we had, you know, some staff members who were, you know, very driven and working all-nighters. And are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough exercise? It can be tied to other variables, and it can be made very transparent through the blockchain.
I wanted to push the DAO question over to Tan. Tan, what are you seeing in Malaysia as far as acceptance of DAOs by the government? Are they recognized in any way?
Okay, I think many DAO, because DAO itself, we can actually adopt it into associations. So we have seen some association, or official or unofficial, they created, and then they initially started as a DAO. But after a lot of members joining in, investing and all that, they then registered associations. But the associations itself doesn't really hold any fiat currencies. So basically, their memberships is in crypto, everything is in crypto. Only when they need to, you know, sell it and all that, that is where they actually change it to fiat. So this is actually workable. And we even have some of our members paying membership fees in crypto. So in a way, we are much more like a DAO and association combination, a hybrid. But I guess moving forward in another 5-10 years, a DAO might be making more sense now.
Okay. What about you, Alice? I mean, so, you know, I know that Wyoming in the United States has very acceptance of DAOs, and I'm a part of Texas Blockchain Council. The state of Texas is really pushing forward on it. But do you ever see the United States, any of the states making it so that there's limited liability on DAOs in the U.S.?
I think Delaware's been quite progressive, and we work with a company that has an on-chain entity, Delaware Series LLC, and from my understanding, they've registered probably close to 1,000 DAOs under that series. So we also have an on-chain.
So they're wrapping the DAOs under an LLC for liability?
Yeah, yes, because some DAOs want to have a legal.
Oh, you know, now that
Legal-
you mention it, I've seen that on the state legislature for Texas,
Yeah.
a bill
Yeah,
to allow that.
Quite a few companies want to have the governance of a DAO, but have a legal existence.
A legal entity.
Yes,
That's
to
one of the
represent.
things-
Yeah.
That's one of the scary things about DAOs is
Yeah.
you become liable for lawsuits the minute you buy into
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Myrtle, I have a personal question for you. Since you know, my company's moving from development phase to marketing phase, what do you think a marketing budget should be for a fintech company now that wants to gain acceptance and, you know, global notoriety? I mean,
So the marketing budget, right?
Yes.
So it depends on which stage you're at already, right? So if you're a startup, of course, a PR or a marketing agency can adjust to your budget according to the reach. And of course, setting the right KPIs, we do have that. Because without proper KPIs, just providing the hype is not gonna last long. Because again, our goal is to really to build a long-lasting legacy for the startups, just like what we did, right? Because it's almost 7 years this October that Blocktides is basically running. So it's all about really experimenting, not really sticking to what you know, because sometimes we experienced actually last year handling Web 2 projects. And it's really, really like a baby for me. I'm not complaining, by the way. But when it comes to education, it's really like a challenge. It became a challenge. And I took it as a challenge. And at the same time, we knew that the principles and the values, we don't share it. They do have their own goals instead of ours. So you need to weigh when it comes to partnerships as well, when it comes to Web 2, and then the budget. So if you're really like a startup that has a funding of 3 million, you can actually like cost around 5,000 to 7,000 monthly. Yes, that's possible because we're from the Philippines and I know how to budget when it comes to marketing. So just imagine that because you need to have the right allies with you, not just about the money. It's all about really building value. That's the reason why we are still here, right? It's not about the money. And when it comes to integrity, that's what we're actually proud of. So yeah.
okay. Well, the clock's been on 0 for quite a while now, but I've been enjoying this too much. Do we have any questions from the audience for our distinguished experts here? No questions? All right, well, let's wrap this up. I'd like to thank everybody here for attending, and I'd like to thank our Master of Ceremonies and all of our attendants here for taking the time to do this. So, thank you.
Let's give a round of applause to our panelists and our moderator today. May I have a big photo session